Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your home for the biggest stories shaping the US and the world. I'm Cary, Johnston, live from the Firstpost studios. Our top story on the show today. We look at why Iran's ballistic missile arsenal has become an explosive sticking point in negotiations with the US. Also on the program, the US is going after one of Mexico's most dangerous drug cartels, offering a multi-million-dollar reward, leading to the capture of its members. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appears before a congressional panel in the ongoing Jeffrey Epstein investigation. So what happened inside the closed-door session? And Indian management students turn their backs on the American dream as visa hurdles get higher and higher. The United States and Iran have just wrapped up their third round of negotiations in a bid to avert a major conflict breaking out in West Asia. But nothing concrete came out of this latest round. On the surface, it's about uranium enrichment. Washington says Tehran is inching towards acquiring a nuclear bomb. Tehran says that's fiction and that its enrichment is for civilian purposes. The US also wants hard limits on Iran's ballistic missile program, though Iran says only the issues of economic sanctions and nuclear capability should be on the table.
The subject of the negotiations, as has been said many times, is focused on the nuclear issue. Our positions are clear, both in the field of lifting sanctions and in relation to Iran's nuclear rights and interests, the peaceful use of nuclear energy. We have presented our views very clearly to the Omani side, mainly under these two main headings.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says ballistic missiles are an internal defense matter. During the latest talks, he reportedly refused to even open a letter from the US side proposing missile restrictions. So, why this red line? Well, first, let's understand what a ballistic missile is. It's a rocket powered at launch with a system that steers itself in the right direction. Once it reaches high enough altitude, it travels on its own path towards the target. It can deliver warheads containing either conventional explosives or potentially biological, chemical, or nuclear munitions. The West sees Iran's missiles as a double threat. Today they're conventional weapons, but tomorrow they could be delivery systems for nuclear warheads. According to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Iran has the largest ballistic missile stockpile in West Asia. These missiles can travel 2,000 kilometers, a range said to be enough to protect the country. Well, most of the missile sites are located in and around the capital, Tehran. Iran has at least 5 known underground missile cities in provinces, including Kermanshah and Semnan, as well as near the Gulf region. The country's arsenal includes multiple short-range missiles capable of traveling to countries like Syria and Iraq. Some long-range missiles can even reach beyond Israel. In 2020, Iran fired a ballistic missile from underground for the first time. And in June last year, during the 12-day war with Israel, Tehran launched ballistic missiles that killed several people and damaged buildings. In June 2023, Iran unveiled what it called its first domestically made hypersonic ballistic missile. That can travel at least 5 times the speed of sound. Well, recently, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that Tehran is building missiles that can strike even further.
Well, I won't speculate as to how far away they are, but they are certainly trying to achieve, and this is not new, they're trying to achieve intercontinental ballistic missiles. For example, you've seen them try to launch satellites into space. You've seen them increasing the range of the missiles they have now. And clearly they are headed in the pathway to one day being able to develop weapons that could reach the continental U.S.
And in January 2024, Iran's Revolutionary Guards fired missiles at targets in Iraq and Syria, claiming they struck Israeli intelligence and Islamic State positions. For Iran, then, missiles are a deterrence. They're an insurance and a response to decades of isolation and threat. For the West, they're a ticking time bomb. So the talks may be focusing on uranium, but there's also an argument about how far Iran can go to defend itself and how long America is willing to wait to find out. The United States is stepping up its crackdown on Mexican drug cartels. Washington is now offering up to $10 million for information leading to the arrest or conviction of two alleged leaders of the Sinaloa cartel. The reward targets brothers Rene and Alfonso Arzate Garcia. U.S. authorities say they play key roles in trafficking fentanyl, methamphetamine and cocaine into the United States. Each brother carries a reward of up to $5 million. Well, the crackdown is especially focused on fentanyl. The synthetic opioid has driven a devastating overdose crisis in America. U.S. officials say Mexican cartels are central to its production and distribution, with Donald Trump describing the drug in dramatic terms.
That's why today I'm taking one more step to protect Americans from the scourge of deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing.
Well, Justice Department has charged the Arzate brothers with serious offences, including international drug trafficking, money laundering and even narco-terrorism. It suggests that cartel violence is not just being treated as an organised crime, but as a national security threat. Pressure on Mexican cartels is visibly intensifying. Just days ago, Mexican forces killed El Mencho, the powerful head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. His death triggered violent retaliation across several states. Washington had offered a bounty of $15 million on his head. For years, members of the Sinaloa drug cartel have been major U.S. targets. The most famous case is Joaquin Guzman, known as El Chapo. He was extradited to the U.S., tried in New York and sentenced to prison in 2019. The U.S. labeled the cartel as a terrorist organization. Sinaloa State's largest city, Culiacan, is plagued with rampant drug-fueled violence. And despite the presence of federal troops, residents continue to report daily murders.
It's like an extermination of a select few people. In Culiacan, there's an average of 4 or 5 homicides daily and an average of 18 stolen vehicles, and it's very targeted. Maybe it's not as visible as it was in the first phase, but it's still happening. So you're at great risk because today 3 or 4 people are going to lose their lives and you don't know where.
Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum is in navigating a delicate balance. The U.S. frame cartels as national security threats, but she believes in a more human-centric approach based on social programs and is firmly against foreign intervention or increased violence.
What do? We seek to avoid harm to civilians, to the people. Our policy is not military confrontation because that was already tried in Mexico from 2006 to 2012, and what it generated was much more violence.
Washington has long pressured Mexico to take tougher action against cartels. It has even offered to send American troops to manage the situation. And even though Mexico recently killed El Mencho, Donald Trump posted a message on Truth Social insisting that Mexico must step up its efforts against drugs and cartels. So Washington is turning up the heat. But what will be the cost on both sides of the border? And will civilians get burnt in the crossfire? Still to come on the program. A billboard in Texas sparks a cultural firestorm as an Indian origin candidate hits back over online hate. But first, Jeffrey Epstein was a wealthy financier convicted of running a years-long sex trafficking operation involving underage girls and their alleged abuse by some of America's most powerful. 7 years after Epstein's death in the New York prison, Congress is still investigating how his network operated and who may have known about his crimes. That investigation brought former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton before a Republican-led panel after over 6 hours of closed-door testimony. The 2016 Democratic presidential candidate pushed back strongly. Clinton denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes and called on President Donald Trump to testify about his own connections to the disgraced financier. The testimony was briefly disrupted after a photograph of Hillary Clinton inside the deposition room was posted online, despite the hearing being conducted behind closed doors. She criticized the incident as a violation of agreed rules. saying lawmakers had insisted the session remain private. Hillary Clinton's husband, former President Bill Clinton, also features in the latest cache of documents into the Epstein investigation. The former Secretary of State said she's confident that her husband was also unaware of Epstein's crimes before his conviction.
I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Hillary Clinton sharply criticized the questioning by Republican lawmakers, saying the session often strayed beyond the scope of the Epstein investigation.
And then, as I said, toward the end, there were other questions that were totally off subject. I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me.
Well, Clinton also addressed questions about Epstein's closest associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, attending their daughter Chelsea's wedding in 2010. She said Maxwell came as someone's guest. Well, Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Epstein recruit and exploit underage girls. Republicans leading the inquiry deny Clinton's charge that their probe is politically motivated. They say the goal is to understand Epstein's network of powerful associates and how he was able to operate for years. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said the investigation is ongoing and signaled that lawmakers will continue seeking testimony from other key figures connected to Epstein.
Our deposition has concluded. It's a shame that it took 7 months to get Ms. Clinton in. She answered most of our questions. The number of times that she said, "I don't know, you'll have to ask my husband," was more than a dozen.
Well, appearing in Epstein-related documents does not mean a person has committed a crime. Recently released records show both Donald Trump and Bill Clinton had past contact with Epstein, though both men have said they cut ties with him years before his 2008 conviction on sex offense charges. The Clintons had initially resisted subpoenas demanding testimony, but eventually agreed to appear after Republicans threatened to hold them in contempt of Congress. Depositions are taking place in Chappaqua, New York, the Clintons' own neighborhood, where former President Bill Clinton is scheduled to testify next. A powerful shift is underway in America's higher education sector, and the numbers are impossible to ignore. A recent report suggests that a growing number of international students are ditching the United States when it comes to higher studies. The reason is visas. But first, let's look at some of the figures. In August last year, the US saw an overall drop of 19% in total new international enrollments. Indian student enrollments at US universities fell by 45%. According to the Graduate Management Admission Council, the long dominant North American corridor is losing ground, especially when it comes to Indian students. The report says,
"Where will Indian students go as the United States and Canada lose favor with this huge population of internationally mobile candidates? Programs in Europe, within Asia, and within India itself have a strong chance of attracting more of these prospective students with appeals to greater affordability and proximity to home."
The survey also focused on 361 business schools. Around half of management programs in the Asia-Pacific region reported higher international enrollment in the fall of 2025. Meanwhile, 2/3 of such programs in the US reported declines. A huge majority of business schools even said that some Indian students paid the deposits but never arrived to pursue the course. Most students now prefer Western Europe to pursue management studies. In 2019, 57% of non-US candidates preferred studying in America. But last year, that number dropped to 42%. Interest in Asia and Eastern Europe steadily climbed. Well, as we mentioned at the start, it all revolves around visas. A temporary suspension of US visa interviews in the summer of 2025 slowed processing times. Immigration curbing proposals added more doubt. Even uncertainty around the H-1B high-skilled work visa is making candidates think again, especially when President Trump announced a $100,000 fee for each applicant.
अगर आप वीज़ा के लिए अप्लाई करने की जो फ़ीस है वही बढ़ा देंगे तो काफ़ी सारे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं जो अफोर्ड नहीं कर पाएंगे वो जा ही नहीं पाएंगे वहाँ, तो वो उस अपॉर्चुनिटी को भी अवेल नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो इसलिए मेरे ओपिनियन में तो ये गलत ही है, लेकिन उनका पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू भी ज़रूरी है कि वो ट्रम्प अपने कंट्री के हिसाब से लॉ बनाएंगे, अपनी कंट्री के को आगे रखने के लिए उस हिसाब से पॉलिसीज़ लेके आएंगे, तो वो उनके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सही है। बट जो बाकी कंट्रीज़ हैं जैसे जो ज़्यादातर मोस्टली लाइक इंडिया, जो वहाँ जाके स्टूडेंट्स काम करना चाहते हैं, जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ लेना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए ये बिल्कुल सही है।
Well, since Donald Trump returned to office, disinterest among non-US management candidates has grown. The survey says that before the 2024 election, most international students didn't think the outcome of the election would affect their plans. But that confidence has clearly shifted. The situation is the same for Canada. It capped international study permits in 2024. The UK restricted dependents and shortened post-study working rights. The report by the Graduate Management Admission Council suggests that by 2026, university rankings alone won't decide where talent goes. It will depend on visa clarity, post-study working rights and affordability. So the management studies dream hasn't faded, it's simply relocated. Because in this new era of global education, ambition still travels, but only where borders remain open. A campaign billboard in Texas has sparked a fierce national conversation, not just about politics, but about identity. When Indian origin state House candidate Pooja Sethi was mocked online by a conservative commentator, the debate quickly shifted from policy to heritage. But Sethi didn't stay silent. With one targeted response, she turned a social media swipe into a broader discussion about belonging. Here's our report.
In the combustible world of American politics, sometimes a single photograph can light a match. A campaign billboard bearing the words Pooja Sethi did exactly that. She is a Texas State House candidate from District 47. It all began when conservative commentator Savannah Hernandez posted an image of the sign on X with the caption, "Welcome to Politics in Texas." The commentator went on to note that the Indian origin Democrat supports gun reform, abortion rights, and had previously worked as an immigration attorney for Catholic Charities. But the debate did not stay on policy for long. Instead, it veered towards identity. Sethi did not take the comment well and fired back with a tweet.
My heritage isn't an insult. It's my story. And like millions of Americans, it's rooted in hard work, faith in this country, and service to our community. If that bothers you, that says more about you than it does about me.
Critics and online trolls chose to escalate the rhetoric rather than dial it down. One user mocked the controversy, writing, "It's funny how even their names revolve around poop." Another took a more hardline stance, declaring, "We need to outlaw foreigners from holding office." The comments grew sharper from there. Anyone with the word poo in their name should be deported immediately. Anyone disagree? One post read, while another broadened the attack, claiming, "They ruined the hotel industry in America. What other great thing do we have to look forward to?" Supporters were quick to applaud what they viewed as a dignified yet firm rebuttal. One user wrote, "I'm absolutely fine with this, as long as they are a full citizen, uphold the Constitution, and ensure their actions reflect their campaign promises." Another commenter didn't mince words, saying, "People like Savannah Hernandez are exactly why there is so much hatred in the country right now." Others steered the conversation back to substance over identity. "I care more about their policies than their name," one person noted, while another added pointedly that they wouldn't vote for a Hernandez either. But who is the woman at the center of the storm? Sethi is hardly a political newcomer. She has served as Chief of Staff to Texas State Representative Vicki Goodwin and previously chaired the Travis County Democratic Party. She has nearly 4 years of experience in the Texas legislature. Yet her candidacy has unfolded against a broader backdrop. Indian-origin public figures in the United States have increasingly found themselves targeted online, accused of replacing American workers or taking over institutions. A rhetoric that has intensified alongside renewed scrutiny of the H-1B visa program and the rising visibility of Indian American leaders in public life.
That's it on the show today, but we'll be back on Monday. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Bye-bye.